Public Works Committee meeting. I'm Lori Dr. Wright, and I call this meeting to order. Item number 2 is an ordinance closing a portion of a public way requested by Heather Brower Orvis, Orvis Law Firm PLLC, to close a portion of the right-of-way located at 9907 South 100th East Place, Millicent Crossing Addition. The requested closing of the right-of-way is for an existing retaining wall in District 7. Welcome to the table, Mr. Zachary.
Well, it's
Sorry for the
great to
promotion.
be here, yes.
Wow.
I couldn't
A lot
get
of
it to
crosstalk
talk.
happening. I don't know how.
Thank you.
Tell us all about this right away.
Paul
Don't you
Zachary,
turn your
Public
back on
Works.
me.
This home is on a dead-end street out, and they built a wall there to help build up their yard. And they have asked if we could close part of that right-of-way so they would get any kind of an encroachment and title issues created by that. We had all the utilities and right-of-way occupiers took a look at it, and there's nothing being adversely affected by closing that right-of-way. And we thought that might be the best solution, permanent solution for them. The right-of-way is open, so a public hearing is required, but nobody offered any objection at all, and I think it makes sense for everybody.
Great, I haven't heard anything either, so I guess we'll find out tonight in the public hearing.
There you go.
Okay, any questions or comments? Item number 3 is an ordinance, and
Thank you.
thanks, Mr. Zachary. Ordinance amending Title 11B, Tulsa Revised Ordinances titled Solid Waste Management, Chapter 5, Solid Waste Rates and Deposits, Section 502B, Green Waste Disposal Site Rate, making necessary amendments to green waste disposal fee for non-residents and commercial customers and other governmental agencies or entities, providing for severability, establishing an effective date of May 1st, 2025. It carries the emergency clause, and it is on for the second. Who is presenting to us? Nobody's here to talk trash? Okay, I'll do it. Our resident trash talker. So,
Ready.
okay. It has the emergency clause for next week. All right.
That's a great. Maybe we can have someone that'll make it down before the end of the
Or
meeting.
just send an email explaining themselves. I don't know. Okay. Well, should anyone that could speak to this be viewing us on TGov, the elevator to the 4th floor is available for your use. Let's move to number 4, resolution of the City Council of the City of Tulsa, Oklahoma, approving the issuance and sale of the trustees of the Tulsa Municipal Airport Trust of one or more series of revenue bonds in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $500 million to be designated as trustees of the Tulsa Municipal Airport Trust Revenue Bond Series 2025 American Airlines Inc. project, approving execution of the Second Amendment to the amended and restated sublease to be entered into by and between the trustees and American Airlines Inc., amending the amended and restated sublease dated February 15th, 2022, by and between such parties, approving the waiver of competitive bidding, carries the emergency clause and waiver of competitive bidding. And just a note, 2/3 of the council will have to agree to passage for competitive bidding and 3/4 to waive competitive bidding, 2/3 for the emergency clause. And this is on for the second. Hello, you had all that time to come to the table.
Thank you all.
Can you
My name is
just-
Alexis Higgins. I'm the CEO of Tulsa International Airport. I have my friends with me from American Airlines. Go ahead.
David Young with American.
Mike Long, American Airlines.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
So, of course, American Airlines is our largest tenant at the airport. Not only do they provide critical air service to Tulsa, they are a major employer and have been for decades. And we're excited to bring to you all an update on their base revitalization effort, which will include the need to issue some new debt and retire some old debt. So I'll turn it over to the American team.
Thanks, Alexis. So again, Mike Long, I'm a project manager with American's corporate real estate department. So I do construction projects throughout our system, primarily focused on Tulsa here because we have so much going on. So I'll talk quickly just to kind of give an overview of American and what we have going on here in Tulsa. Our headquarters is in Fort Worth, Texas. We're 130,000 team members strong, approximately 5,000 of which are here in Tulsa. We have 985 aircraft in our mainline fleet that does not include our regional fleet, and we serve 350 destinations, 60 countries around the world. That's our maintenance facility here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's a large facility. I'll talk more about the specifics on that here in just a second. But within this facility here in Tulsa, we do heavy maintenance on our aircraft. So we pull them into the hangar, we take the aircraft apart, and really give it a heavy overhaul, which is driven by FAA requirements. So things like modifications to the aircraft, if we're redoing cabin interiors, engine repair and overhaul. You can see a picture there of one of the engines taken off the plane, which is common practice out here at the base, so that we can rehab the engine. And then even full lavatories taken out of the aircraft, all the seating getting overhaul, and of course wheel and brakes as well. So those are the big primary functions here in Tulsa. And again, those are spread over a pretty significant real estate portfolio here. We moved down to Tulsa, our maintenance operation, from LaGuardia back in 1946, shortly after World War II. And we believe today this is the world's largest commercial aviation maintenance facility at 3.3 million square feet. We're spread over 246 acres there on the airport property with 22 buildings on the main base. We have 3 off-site facilities here in Tulsa as well, Hangar 80, Wheel and Brake Center, and the Composite Repair Center. And just to kind of show that on the map, that's kind of where we are spread around the airport. There on the main base property, you can kind of see multiple hangar facilities where, again, we land our aircraft on the airfield and then we pull them into the hangar and we start taking them apart to do the heavy maintenance. Those buildings are flanked by various support shops, the CAM building and the TEO building, where we actually do the heavy maintenance on the engines and everything else that we take off the plane. So it's a substantial square footage that has evolved over time. This is kind of our heat map of how the property developed over many decades, red being back in World War II for bomber production, is my understanding, hangars 1 through 4. And then we sort of, after we took it over in 46, we added on to it over the decades. The last big investment there in blue was Hangar 6 that completed in 1991. So today, when you look at the base, or back in 2020 when we announced this construction program, you would see things like old infrastructure. This is one of our old wood cooling towers that was suffering some wind damage at the time. So, and other things like boilers that were having reliability issues. This was a rental boiler we had to bring in during one of the hard freezes back then. And then just inside the building, you see pipes that are starting to show their age on the inside, and even some of which are actually failing at the time. These are some valves and pipes. So basically at the time, we acknowledged the need to do some heavy investment in that infrastructure so that we could keep the property going. Our board approved $369 million for us to spend on such things throughout the property. This is the list of those projects that we devised at the time to address that infrastructure, several of which have been completed over there on the left-hand column, others that are actively in construction or in design, and then just a few that we have yet to start because we've been really busy for a couple of years. So today, if you take that cooling tower, the approach for getting it replaced is start with the tower, help Mother Nature a little bit, take it down the rest of the way, and then build the infrastructure for a replacement tower, start dropping the new cells in place, and it's done, right? Super quick, easy. It takes just a couple minutes, but it actually takes a lot of work, or procurement, temporary cooling towers, planned outages because we have to keep the property running while we're doing the infrastructure work, and things of that nature. So if you take that cooling tower example and you amplify it times all the other infrastructure pieces out there at the property, like electrical distribution, water distribution for fire water and other things, 157 million of that 369 that we're investing in just foundational infrastructure that keeps the buildings running. Another 96 million for roofing throughout the facility so that we can keep the rain off of our airplanes while we're working on them. And then other projects that are more soft touch, just repainting the outside, redoing restrooms so that our team members have a nice place to work, and even a few projects where we're actually modernizing shop equipment so that we can run our processes more efficiently and reliably and keep aircraft moving through this facility. All told, we've spent a little over $208 million to date. We project the remainder of that 369 being spent through the end of 2027. All so that we can keep our operations here in Tulsa running reliably and supporting the rest of the airline, because the operation here in Tulsa is so critical to everything else that we do. So I know that's a lot, and it's very quick, but thank you for listening, and I'll take any questions if anybody has any.
Okay, don't all put your hands up in line. Counselor Archie.
Sure. Well, it's a pleasure to meet you all and to see you again. American is my favorite airline. I fly there, I fly almost exclusively.
Getting kickbacks?
No, but.
Somebody's making different deals.
Don't look at me, look at yourself.
So I think,
Listen, Counselor Archie has the floor.
Sure.
Point of order. Sorry, I'll stop.
when I think about these investments, it's jobs, and just, so number one, thank you for your investment, since the 40s in Tulsa. My question is, just learning new, getting all this squared away. The waiving of the competitive bidding, is that because American has contractors that y'all like to work with, or who can explain to me what's
Probably Mr. Blair.
the significance of sort of waiving that?
Well, I can't explain the policy justification for it, but the statute does require a 3/4 vote for that waiver.
Jeff is our Director of Risk and Legal Services, and he can address some of that too.
Actually not an attorney, but.
Can you come to the table, please?
Oh, yes, sure.
Thank you.
Is it fine?
Tell us who you are. and-
So under the way I've read the statute and the way it's been explained to me by another financial advisor, so TMAT has two choices. You can go out to competitive bid, which means you have to publish that notice in the Tulsa World for 2 consecutive weeks, or you can open up, by waiving competitive bid, you can open it up to the entire market. And that's the way Tate has done it for a long time, and that's the way TMAT. American Airlines is not issuing the bonds, TMAT is issuing the bonds, so
Okay.
that's the reason. We're opening the bids up for the entire market
Okay,
instead of locally.
sure. Well, those are my questions.
Okay. Any other questions? Oh, Counselor Gilbert.
Anybody else have any questions?
No, I just
Oh.
have praises.
Yeah,
Counselor Dutton does.
okay. I can go last.
Oh, see how.
Are we gonna be long-winded? So the 5,000 jobs that you quoted in Tulsa, is that there on the base?
In the 3 off-site facilities, yeah.
The 3 off-site facilities, which are,
Hangar 80, the Wheel and Brake Center, and the
which
Composite
is
Repair Center. All-
on Memorial, the
yeah,
Wheel and Brake Center on
right.
Memorial.
Yep.
Who's on that map that was up on the screen?
Well, I don't see very well, so
Okay.
I have to ask these questions, 'cause bad eyes, old eyes. So what about, this may or may not be anything, but what about the main base where the data center, initial technology data centers were? I think that's all moved to Fort Worth now, or Dallas.
No, it's still on our property. It's now not leased to American. It was DXC,
DXC
or it is DXC now. It was EDS.
used to be
and
Sabre.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
okay.
It's still there.
Okay. Okay, that's really all I had, was I wanted to find out what that was, because I remember when it changed to Sabre, and then,
EDS,
yeah.
now
EDS.
DXC.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Counselor Lakin. Did you still want to go after Counselor
Sure.
Lakin or before?
Oh, yeah,
Lakin?
she definitely wants to be last. I just want to say thank you for being in Tulsa, thank you for being here for, 70 years. Tulsa and American Airlines have been great partners, and I don't think we'd be the city without American Airlines, so thank you for your continued investment in us, and I hope we're delivering to you what you're delivering to us. So let's keep this partnership going as long as we possibly can.
Thank you very much.
Likewise.
It's a value for American as well.
Good, good. And if you can bring their really cool aircraft here to be maintained, that would be even better. Yeah. We got some good ones. Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to echo what Counselor Lakin said. Thank you very much for what you're doing for Tulsa with American Airlines, and especially the employment that you're supporting. One World, Is there any chance that you can bring Alaska Air?
Now who's making a deal?
Can't really comment on that.
Okay, well, maybe we can talk later.
We're trying to get Alaska to come to Tulsa, so,
Yes.
that's been a priority of the airports for quite some time.
Put the typos on it, they seem to be
Yeah,
able to.
anytime, anything I can do to help with that, please let me know.
Okay,
Yes.
good to
I
know.
thought it was something.
Okay, if there's anything else on this item, no, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Solicitation.
I haven't recovered from.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I wasn't thinking of anywhere the other day.
Item number 5, quality event designation for the 2025 Black Wall Street Rally to be held May 15th to 17th, 2025. Identifies the city of Tulsa as the event's host community, carries the emergency clause. And this is, who's presenting this?
I don't see the normal people here.
Is this Visit Tulsa?
Sometimes it's them, but sometimes it's also, the person doing our managed entity contracts, so. I would just suggest going to the next item.
2
and
for
we'll
2 today,
text.
friends, okay.
Just, it's been designated a quality event in the past though, right?
I have no idea.
I believe it has. I'm just, okay.
I
What
don't
was it?
know, I don't think this one.
Oh, it
has.
hasn't?
I think in
Okay.
the last, there was another event that was quality, and then Hall Harbor asked afterwards.
She mentioned maybe that this
Right.
hadn't been, you're right, okay.
I'll
That's just
send-
like a, once
I'll
that
send
person
a
comes down,
text
they can
If you wanna go to the next.
tell us that.
Okay,
I'll send a text.
Okay.
the elevator lands on the 4th floor, friends. Okay, just number 6. Resolution declaring property located at the corner of East 35th Place and Riverside Drive, Rayburn Park Addition as surplus and no longer necessary for any public use or purpose, and requesting the Asset Management Department to effect the sale of said property in District 9. Hi.
Hi, Roger Ace with the Asset Management Department. We were contacted by a citizen about this property that the city had owned, and apparently it was acquired back in '92 with sales tax money, so there's no funding restriction on it. And they wanted to know if it's for sale. We looked into it, and there's, at this point, no reason to hang on to it. Gathering Place came into play, built the bridge, so there was going to be no expansion of Riverside from 2 lanes to 3 lanes on each side. So we have sold other properties along Riverside, and this is like the last one that would be available for surplus, and that's one we brought it to council.
Okay. Awesome.
No issues.
No. What's the zoning on something like that? RS3. Okay. All right. Any question or comments? All right. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 7 is a discussion with the Tulsa Planning Office on Neighborhood Conditions and Index Pilot Program, including pilot program overview, application process, and goals for program participation. Hello.
Hi, good afternoon. Susan Miller, with the Planning Office. I think you all know Paulina Baeza, also with the Planning Office. So we are excited to talk about the NCI, or Neighborhood Conditions Index Pilot Program. And I think that at least at some level, I've talked to all of you about the Neighborhood Conditions Index. It's something we've been working on for several years now. So if you remember, or just as a reminder, the Neighborhood Conditions Index is our data-driven reports that really highlight the things that neighborhoods are doing well and other aspects in which they can improve. So, you know, we've shared these with you, and Paulina will kind of go through one again. But how this is important to us right now is that we are creating a pilot program. And if you remember before, we always say that Neighborhood Conditions Index gives a lot of information, shows the things that are in most need of improvement, but we also think it's a conversation starter. It's just the beginning of the conversation with the neighborhood. We don't want to go into a neighborhood or tell a neighborhood what's most important to them, because everyone has their own set of priorities and things that they want to see for their neighborhood. So that's really what this is about. It's about working with neighborhoods. So let's see here. So first of all, we'll talk about a lot of these things and give you a little bit, go through a report a little bit again if you're a little rusty on that. But as far as the pilot program, we've learned a lot from neighborhood programs that we've done before, as far as, so there's really an evolution of even working with small area plans and other neighborhood programs, and and really knowing that we don't want to spend all of our time with one neighborhood. We want to be able to help as many neighborhoods as we can, which is, we have pretty limited resources as far as people that can do that. But we're excited on this one because the pilot is 1 year long, so it's a pretty aggressive timeline. We're going to select up to 3 neighborhood areas. We'll talk about how we're going to do that. The map that you have shows the eligible areas for the program, which Paulina will talk about that. And it shows the council district boundaries, so you can get a sense of, how many are in your.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Go back.
Yeah, you're good.
It's gonna take a little nap.
Yeah, everyone has some except for Counselor Lakin. But anyway, I'm sorry.
We'll unpack that later.
Yeah.
My family in District 9, that'll change.
So sorry about that. Of course, the purpose is generally neighborhood revitalization, elevating safety and enhancing infrastructure to the greatest extent possible. But based on, our very limited resources there. But really, in general, our goal is to work in these neighborhoods in a very concentrated and focused time frame, and to really make a difference, and that's the goal. Not something that's spread out over a long amount of time and there's 100 actions and we can only do a couple. We really want to pick those 3 that are most important and really hit it hard to make a difference by the end of that year. So we have had our first meeting. There's also other things being talked about from other people that might be able to add on to this, but at minimum, this is where we are. We have the planning office, the police department, code enforcement, public works, and animal services. So those are our task force members, and we have had our initial meeting with them. And these are things we actually just kind of made up, and then we showed the task force just to make sure we weren't, misspeaking as far as possible things that could be addressed in the program. I'm sure there's more that we haven't even begun to thought of. So loose animals or, code enforcement issues, vacant abandoned buildings, all kinds of code enforcement issues, maybe traffic calming or street lights or many other things. So, of course, again, we'll be using NCI data as the beginning point of discussion with the neighborhoods once they are selected to determine what those 3 priority actions will be. But I'll that's a big picture of it all, but I'll turn it over to Paulina to kind of give you a refresher and talk more specifically about the program.
Sure, thank you so much, Susan. So every neighborhood is unique. Tulsans love their neighborhoods and they want to make improvements in them, but sometimes they may not know where to start, and that's where the neighborhood conditions comes in. It's an effort by the city of Tulsa that uses data to help guide a more equitable allocation of resources throughout the city, but also it's a tool that assists neighborhood residents in identifying their strengths and assets as well as their areas of opportunity for improvement. It's very similar to a personal health assessment. So just like in a personal health assessment, you may measure categories like heart, liver, kidney, and get a selection of metrics. In this case, we're measuring categories or themes like land use, transportation, economic development, housing and neighborhoods, amongst others. And we developed 80 neighborhood reports, 80 NCI reports that correspond to 80 neighborhood statistical areas, which are groupings of census tracts that include neighborhoods of similar characteristics. So the invitation process for this pilot program, as you can see on the map, not all 80 are eligible. We use different filters in order to try to identify our priority areas or areas in need. So our first filter was looking into NCI priority groups 1 and 2. Our second filter was looking into areas that had neighborhood groups that were registered with the city. So neighborhood groups meaning neighborhood associations, HOAs, block groups, tenant associations, and also that were actively engaged. And by this I mean, like, for instance, if they had contacted the city to request dumpsters, to participate in the neighborhood leaders luncheon, that have launched a block party, that meet regularly. It's very important that we work with neighborhoods that are organized and established in order to help make this program successful. The application process. So on Monday, we had an information session and the application process opened. We have close to 40 people in attendance. We had this information session at Rudisill Regional Library. We sent an email to contact information that we had from the neighborhoods within those 40 areas. And the application closes on Tuesday, April the 15th at 5 p.m. The application is available both in English and Spanish, and it's an application form that is not too difficult to fill. On Friday, May the 2nd, we're going to announce the neighborhoods that are going to be selected, which, as Susan mentioned, up to 3 neighborhood areas are going to be selected. Now, keep in mind that the neighborhood statistical area includes multiple neighborhood groups, so the idea would be to get them to partner and work with all of them as we select those areas and we launch the process of the pilot. So the application includes basically 4 sections. The first one is general information, which is contact info of the person that is applying, as well as there are questions about the neighborhood association, and if it's registered with the city, there's a link in case they're not registered. Leadership and participation, that's section number 2. And leadership and participation includes questions about like how often they meet, what kind of events they hold. It's a way for us to kind of measure how actively engaged they are and how much they work together. Section number 3 is neighborhood priorities. It's where we're going to get a better feel of what their priorities are in regards to those needs that we will be able to align or pair with the resources from the city participants in the task force. And finally, section 4 is a partnership requirement. And the partnership requirement is us basically asking them if they have ever worked with other of the neighborhood groups that are neighboring their like neighborhood association or whatnot, or if they work with other entities or organizations within their neighborhood like churches, schools, etc. Now, in that section 4, there's also a link that they can go to the neighborhood viewer map. And the neighborhood viewer map has all of the neighborhood groups that are registered within the city. And we added a layer for the neighborhood statistical areas as well. So they can go into this map, zoom into their neighborhood statistical area, be able to see, block groups, HOAs, neighborhood associations, and they can click on them and get contact information for them as well in case they start, engaging with them, asking them if they're interested in partnering and working with us on this pilot program. Now, expectations and roles. The planning office will serve as a liaison or coordinator between the selected neighborhoods and the task force. We're also going to be the ones that work with the neighborhoods, conduct workshops, identify their needs, build their action plans, and again, partner with the other groups. The neighborhoods will select a neighborhood representative as well that will be our contact person and establish 3 steering committee teams. And the task force it has representatives of all of these city participants or members that are going to be providing the assistance and the resources, including animal services, code enforcement, public works, police department, and of course, the planning office. Now, this is what the timeline looks like. So now in May, we're going to, as soon as we announce those selected neighborhoods, we're going to be working on coordinating when we're meeting with them to conduct 3 workshops with each of the neighborhoods. During those workshops from June to August, we're going to prioritize goals, build an action plan, and refine that action plan with the city of Tulsa. And then from September to February, we're going to be doing implementation and reporting. We're going to have up to 5 meetings with each of the neighborhoods where we're going to be coordinating on implementing the action plans, work with the city of Tulsa representatives of the task force, and report updates and progress. Now, in addition to this work happening with the neighborhoods, we're also going to be having task force meetings linked to the application, as well as maps like the one that you have and the neighborhood viewer map in order to provide information, contact information for the other neighboring neighborhood groups. And I guess with that, we're opening the floor for questions.
Counselor Bellis.
You know me, I have no interest in neighborhood data. No, I'm kidding. No, I think this is really exciting, especially acknowledging like you all did such a huge lift to pull together massive amounts of data and then actually figure out like ratings and indicator systems and then like census tracts and then one of the hardest things when you have that much data pulled together is how do you make it actionable for people. So it's exciting to see here's this pilot of here's how we create an avenue to make it meaningful so we're not just admiring and gazing at the data but we're doing something with it. I think I'm curious for like I was just kind of thinking through some of the neighborhoods who've done like looking at area / my own area of like 22 and 21 and like Northwest Tulsa who have also been vibrant neighborhood partner participants or have had small area plans. What does it look like, especially when you're talking about some of these strategic plans to help these, and I hear this also, I'm thinking about the Pearl District where people are like, we have these established like plans or they're really attached because they really participated in developing those. And I know not all of them necessarily have certain pathways forward. What does that look like for helping some of these neighborhoods transition to kind of this other model or using this information to revisit those plans? I just wasn't sure what that looks like for you all.
So what we've learned in kind of the evolution, I guess, would be small area plans, and we have small area plans, a handful of them. They take a long time, everyone puts their wish list in there, very little of it ever gets funded, people get frustrated, and that's just the reality, it's never all gonna be funded. And so, it's more of a source of frustration, so that's still there, and as we can, we do it, but people get very frustrated, and then by the time that at a certain point it gets old and they want it redone and then we'll be in the same place we were before. So we're trying to find something a little more actionable. So there's that, which we're continuing to, we have on our website, we still try to implement it. We have a little bit of implementation funds. We track all that. So we're still in it, but it's a long game, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so then we have the Vibrant Neighborhoods Partnership Program, which was really the first thought of, hey, what kind of, at least in my time here, what kind of program could we really pick a neighborhood and start working with on the ground and come up with an action plan and start working on things at that level. Again, I think, and we learned a lot from that, it was so broad, and the application process was a little similar. The criteria was different at that point. That was during COVID or the beginning of COVID. But, so our neighborhood planner, VNP planner went out, they developed action plans, which were enormous with actions, right? Again, things that may never all be able to be implemented, and then they get frustrated. And now we're about 4 years into all of those neighborhoods, and we're saying at this point, we've implemented some actions here, we're gonna help you implement a few more in your neighborhoods, but those neighborhoods really need to graduate at this point, and you have the action plans, and we'll do with it what we can.
Did this support them? Because I know we also put in to improve our Tulsa, like dollars specifically to those VNP neighborhoods. Will this help them
Well,
also?
and that's another but related process and neighborhood engagement we'll do with the IoT3 funds and with our small area implementation. So all of those things continue in those ways based on that funding. I think the difference so we had some of the representatives from the VNP neighborhoods the other night, and that was a question. And, they are eligible, they can apply. The difference would be, this is a focused program, a lot shorter. There's going to be 3 actions that they decide are the priorities, actions that align with the resources we can provide, not just actions, and then we have to go fish for the resources, which is a typical approach.
Yeah.
So everyone, I think all of the VNP neighborhoods are on here, aren't they, Paulina?
Yes,
they are.
So
all of them are there.
they could apply and even be part of this program too.
Okay.
But anyway, yes, so all of those other programs continue in the way they do, but this is really a different animal. We're hoping that we visibly see a difference on the ground and in the neighborhood with something so concentrated by having the city resources devoted to that and having a shorter amount of time.
Okay, and then there's one last question or curiosity, because something I've seen from, having inherited what my predecessor, Kara Joy McKee, had done, were getting those different neighborhood groups together, was you would have some with much more longitudinal history of results and then some that were newer and so part of it was like them getting to liaise and go, oh, how did you do that? well, is there a possibility within this? I mean, obviously they could like look at the map and maybe pull up, but yeah, to like help them like liaise and just be like, oh, you're seeking to do this. Now we know from this pilot, this other neighborhood just did that successfully. You might want to talk to them. Is that like a feature that could, or something that might come out of?
So,
Because that could be so powerful.
yeah, I'm not
right?
100% sure what you're asking, but, so is that sort of a neighborhood academy?
Like a
I'm just
peer-
curious, like, you know, it's like that peer neighborhood where you're like, hey,
Yeah.
here's a neighborhood similar to yours who had the same goal you do and accomplished. Because, right, I've seen that where it'll be a neighborhood that figured something out, figured out a resource or whatever it was, or navigated it successfully, and then you have a newer neighborhood association or one that's kind of being revived and they
Right.
don't know how to accomplish that thing. But you all have, from talking to all and engaging all these different neighborhoods at once, you'll be able to point to, oh, there's actually one like in East Tulsa that
Yeah,
did
that would be great
X.
to be able to learn from those
Yeah,
neighborhoods.
and then connect
share.
them. That's
And
what I think
connect
you're.
those or just share it ourselves, however.
Part of
that's-
the partnerships, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Well, and that's what I'm curious, because you could actually track being like what neighborhoods are doing what projects, and then going, oh, this one should go talk to that one to figure out like how long it took or whatever it was. It just seems like an opportunity to connect
Yeah.
them to each other so that they can have some resilience or knowledge that way.
This isn't like the adjacent neighborhoods, you mean like across
No, it
the
could be
city?
any. Yeah, I just think about like there's so many moments where when I'm talking to different people across the city where I'm like, oh, like the Riverview Neighborhood Association in my district, they have like 12 officers. It's like the most robust thing on the planet. But like, yeah, it's too much. Sorry, Riverview, but it's great. But sometimes it's a good example where I'm like, hey, if you want to build up infrastructure, they have a whole model for how they do this that could be replicable.
Well, and I think, I mean, it would be ideal if this is a pilot right now,
Yeah.
but it would be ideal if this becomes actually an established project, a program, and every year we can address more neighborhoods, right?
Yeah.
3 neighborhoods every year perhaps. And obviously we're going to be learning different lessons and applying them forward. Like, I can see this as an opportunity where, because the main thing of this program is being able to partner with the neighborhood residents in order to come up with solutions to try to address some of these problems from the root. So, I mean, that learning experience will be applicable if this actually stays and we can replicate it and continue to work with more neighborhoods every year.
That'd be exciting. Well, if you all want to figure out a way to track one more data point up front, it can be like active and successful projects of neighborhoods. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
Counselor Archie.
Yes, thank you so much. Number one, I love the conditions index. Every time that I do a community meeting and, you know, I say I have a special gift for everyone in attendance. And it's like, man, it just kind of opens everyone's eyes to the challenges. And then also, you know, because people feel like, oh, you know, I feel like there's something going on in the neighborhood, or maybe there's, but it's just, you put it on paper and they're able to see there's a metric to it. So there's a neighborhood I'm not seeing on here. It's South Haven. If there's a neighborhood that's not on here, can they still apply? Can they still sort of?
So what do
Knock
you mean
on the
by
door?
not on there? It's not in the yellow?
Yeah, not in the yellow. I'm sorry. Yeah.
So, no, those are the eligible neighborhoods based on the priority and active neighborhood associations and other things. So no,
Okay.
at least at this pass, these are the eligible neighborhoods.
All right. Yeah, there's a growing HOA there. They're becoming real active.
Okay.
And so I'll still tell them about this. So, thank you.
No, just want to say thank you for the presentation. I know that my district showed for the presentation, and so I thought that was really interesting and really great. There seems to be quite a bit of interest, and so clarifying that vibrant neighborhood separation really helped a lot. I appreciate that. I'm excited.
Thank you. So, Counselor Archie, where's South Haven? Sorry.
So South Haven is just below 32, like
Okay. So
where-
it's just out of 32?
Mhm, just
Oh,
where like Tulsa Dream Center West is.
okay, very
How do we find out which or who participated in the Rudisill Library thing? Do you have like a sign-in sheet?
Yes, we do.
Can we see that? So
Yeah,
I
we
can
can
see if
type that
anyone
up
from
and
my
send it to
district.
you.
Yeah, we can send
Yeah,
it
that
to
would be
you.
helpful to see.
I will just say this, thank you for having a community meeting. Rudisill's very far away from my community. So maybe next time we have one north or south or east or west. Because I'm looking at the defined area here, I will be surprised if people showed up at Rudisill. That doesn't mean they can't do it online or something, and I don't know if they're gonna have that.
So first of all, I think, didn't we realize that when the sign-in sheet, it didn't ask them if, what their council district was. Yeah, so that's a,
Does it say their neighborhood or?
I don't know what information it asked for.
I think it's just the email.
Oh, okay.
Well, we'll see.
But
We
what-
can at least search by email maybe. in our
But what
own.
happened is, too, there was an automatic email sent out. The meeting was 5:30 to 6:30. At 6:30 to all the registered neighborhood associations we had with all of the information that we shared at the meeting. So everyone was able to see all that information that we presented at the meeting and the application link and all of that stuff.
But only
regardless
if
of
they're
they-
registered with the city, with the current
Which,
officer's emails.
which would be the eligible neighborhoods.
I know, but are you using the neighborhood association registry that we have? So we're assuming that's current, and I know for a fact in my district it's not.
Oh,
But I
we
have-
made a push to update that with
Yeah.
our neighborhood liaisons.
Right, and
As
we
much
have
as
email
possible.
lists, so I'm happy to like push this information out, but I
Yeah,
actually
that would
need
be
it.
great.
And then, you know, you have Counselor Lakin who doesn't have a defined area in my district, and we talked about this before. Well, I'm serious. In my district, there's adjacent neighborhoods to District 5 and District 6, so when you're talking about collaboration, does it have to be within one district?
No.
Okay, because some of these I think would maybe be more collaborative across district lines.
You mean
Just-
council district?
Yeah.
Some of them
No,
do
yeah,
cross
so-
the lines.
Yeah, so like the one I'm looking at here, number 65, it actually just does cross District 9 and 7. So we don't have to contain it within the district boundary
Yes.
for the coordinated effort.
So if that neighborhood gets selected, like both counselors could be a part of the
Right.
process.
Right, and then, sorry, I have a couple more questions,
please
and then I
go
got
ahead.
you.
No, you
I got
good.
you guys. I'm writing you down. Oh, we talked about this before when this index first came out, so the way that you've collected neighborhoods together, or like geography or whatever, some of the ones that I know in my district wouldn't necessarily, like this, the one, so in the defined area, let's talk about 68, just because I'm looking at it. The neighbors on the border of 68 and 66, those neighborhoods could coordinate an application, or is it defined by the zone that you created? Is my question.
So you're asking if 66 and 68 could combine?
Or like if
it's-
the neighborhoods closest to each other on Mingo could combine? Like, for the application, you said there needs to be coordinated,
So, I mean, I think
or does it
that's
have to
some-
stay in the zone you
I
all
think
created?
it could be considered, as long as they're eligible neighborhoods.
Okay.
Yes.
That
That's
was
the
my
key.
question, yeah.
So we're gonna, I mean, this is a pilot, so I mean, all of your suggestions and all of this stuff is part of our learning, and we'll
Yeah.
kind of figure it out as we go along and then determine, you
I
know,
mean,
what
it-
we need to improve on.
It could be that, yes, neighboring 66, 68, we would just like kind of combine that or. work
Right, I'm just
together.
thinking, so I have some neighborhood schools where community coalesces around like the school more than just their neighborhood.
Right.
And so that might be a way to address these three things that they wanna do,
Yeah, we could
rather
definitely
than
look
just
into that.
street boundaries. Right, it's more
Yeah.
like the neighbors that feed to this community area of a school, or a church, or whatever. Okay, I had, Counselor Dutton and then Counselor Archie.
I just wanted to clarify with Counselor Dr. Wright as well, that I believe the neighborhoods that are actually sharing boundaries can be included in the application process. That's my understanding, that's basically what you just said, right?
Yeah,
As
I
long
mean-
as they're eligible.
If they're in the yellow zone,
I mean, so
Right.
what we've talked, so there's two different things, but both are fine, you know,
Right.
there's multiple neighborhoods within each neighborhood
Right.
statistical areas. Those are
Right.
definitely encouraged to coordinate and submit one application, but
Mm-hmm.
if there are adjacent ones as well, that's something else we'd entertain, for sure, as long as they're eligible neighborhoods, so both those things.
okay,
Thank you.
Counselor Archie.
Yes, so 32, which is Red Fork, perhaps it could wrap its arms around South Haven and say, hey, we'll submit, and then you can come in as well. I'm just thinking about how South Haven can get in there. Who will be doing the picking?
So we will receive the applications. Our criteria will be based on how organized and active the neighborhood associations are to work with. If their needs, because we ask them about their priorities, if they align with the services that we're able to provide, and
Well, it's mainly that.
yeah, mainly that.
It's mainly
So it's the task force. We'll do a first pass in our office, really looking at those things. We want to make sure that everyone that participates is, very successful. So we're kind of looking for those who are geared for success by having people that are really dedicated to helping with that.
So it looks like the initial application, there's some important information you'll look for, and then maybe an interview afterwards, like a phone call maybe?
No, I feel like there's quite a few open-ended questions on the application, so I feel like they have a lot of opportunity to
Yes.
give us some good information. We
Yes.
could, I guess, if we needed to, we could follow up with some questions, but otherwise, I think we could get a lot of good stuff.
Yes.
Would you all be able to forward us an email that we can shoot out to our email list, our
That'd be great.
neighborhood leaders and?
Sure. I want to say,
Share on
I
Instagram.
did I send that yesterday?
You sent it to me.
I sent it to, okay, listen, yeah.
So it's
The
not saving
other,
them.
the other 7, not including district.
I had a private conversation with her, so
Yeah, no.
that's okay. Okay,
There's a lot of us
listen.
have town halls and stuff upcoming, so
Yeah.
this would be the time.
No, I invited them to come to
Good.
I think the thing I'd like to avoid is we didn't know about the opportunity and now we felt like we missed the boat. So it's
So-
our job to help boost the signal, and we can look in these blocks that you all have created and really think in our minds, who are the neighborhood leaders that will actually execute a competitive application, or who should we partner together to help, what Counselor Bellis is talking about, hey, neighbors, I know you're trying to do this. These folks next door to you are in the defined area, partner together and do a thing. I don't know about y'all, but in some of my communities, the neighborhoods don't get along. That you've grouped them together in a group. So, but they have competing priorities or concepts or whatever. And then in other ones, they're more collaborative. So this could also be a way to be here's a shared opportunity. So.
That also speaks to if a neighborhood association doesn't actually represent or reflect the broader neighborhood too. Those are always tricky.
Yeah,
I'm just
well, we do have, I'm looking at District 5, because there are some stalwart people that are the neighborhood leaders, but the rest of the neighbors are coming to the counselor saying, my HOA is not really reflecting our needs. So there's some dynamics here, but if we could better understand the opportunity, it may be a way to move the needle with some of these. So, all right, any other questions? Counselor Bingle, you were awfully quiet.
No, I like the pilot,
Okay,
yeah.
great.
It's gonna be challenging with this many
Yeah.
Yeah.
to select 3.
It is, and our goal would be to, have them kind of as scattered as we can, not all concentrated
Sure.
in one area, one district, whatever, so that we can.
What's the level of resources that are available to the
So that's we're working with what we have. It was an executive order signed by the mayor, so he has, really kind of empowered those groups that are part of our task force to provide the services that are needed in the neighborhoods. We did get a lot of questions the other night as far as what is the funding? Well,
Yeah, what is the funding? That's my question.
That's always our answer for everything we do. There's no funding,
Oh,
but
no funding.
there are city resources and people dedicated to working in whatever neighborhoods are chosen to try to make a difference, so.
Okay. Interesting. All right, anything else? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 8 is a discussion with representatives. Oh, did we pick?
Would you mind going back to item 3? We're
Sure.
ready on that one, and then on item 5, they'd asked to reschedule that to committee on the 2nd.
Okay, so I already read item number 3. We just need our trash talkers to come to the table about green waste. Here they are. Thank you. Hi, will you tell us who you are?
I'm Cheryl Black, Financial Planning Manager for Public Works.
I'm Philip Eeks, manager for over refuse and recycling.
What's your name again?
Philip Eeks.
Thank you. All right, well, talk to us about green waste and fees.
Okay, I'm gonna start us off. This ordinance is a change from $2.64 a cubic yard to $5.28 per cubic yard for commercial and non-resident disposal fees. And so I'll let Philip talk a little bit more.
For a long time, our rate was 55 cents. We have the Terra Board agreed that we needed to recoup our costs for what it costs per cubic yard to process. We did a internal study and it came up to $5.28. The Terra Board felt that doing that all at once would have been kind of hard on the users, so they decided to do it in a two-tier system. So this is the second tier of the rate.
So just to be clear, we're not profiting, this is just to cover
This is
our
what it costs for us to
costs.
process a cubic yard.
We're actually subsidizing right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, Counselor Bellis.
When, do you know or have an estimate about when the last time this was changed? That always also helps us kind of explain to the public going, hey, this hasn't been adjusted to account for cost and inflation since.
Well, the two tiers, so tier one
Yeah,
happened at
Yeah.
some point.
It was last year.
And then prior to that, though,
I don't think I think it was just set.
okay,
They set a rate and it never changed.
okay,
55 cents.
yeah.
Hell, it's a big deal.
So that may have been that way longer than some of us have
But you
been
just said
alive.
for commercial and
Okay.
non-resident.
Yeah, so we
this-
have-
The residents of Tulsa were subsidizing the service.
Yes.
Is really what I
And
want
we-
to
And we have
implement here.
MOU
Yep.
agreements with Broken Arrow and Jinx and Bigsby.
Oh, we've been subsidizing other cities.
So we're going to change that rate as well. So that's what it means to let
Great.
the non.
Well, we are the most generous city in America.
We are
but
very
I don't
giving.
think that's what
Yeah, that, we don't want to be this kind of generous. Okay, thank you for that clarification. It's always helpful for us to have a little of that history and context to explain to folks.
Do you know, do you have a sense of the impact, like the people that are gonna be impacted by this?
It's just going to be all of our
Entities.
commercials. I mean, I don't have a number because the
Okay.
contractor list grows daily.
Okay.
So I would not be able to give you an accurate number how many contractors that it's really going to affect.
Okay, and how do they receive notice? Is it just
We-
being reported
we-
right now?
No, we've had a rate posted
Okay.
out on our gate starting in, I believe it was January,
Okay,
and let them know that it was going to be coming.
all right. Any other questions or, sounds like we probably should just have a regular interval where we look at this so that we at least have it pay for itself. Is that something the Terra Board's doing now?
Well, right now, moving forward, we've reached out to a company out of Kansas City named CS Carey. We're working with a contract negotiation for them to take over all of the commercial side, so the city will be
Less than
completely
that.
hands-off on the commercial side. We'll just take residential.
Okay, that works.
That's good.
Yeah. You also get free mulch, so there's a perk if you,
And the company we're going to be bringing in is,
if you
that's
wanna
their
go pick
business
it
is
up.
mulch.
You do have to pick it up. All right.
Just pay us a
Yes, so we're looking at an end
Area you're talking about.
percentage. So before we had and this predated me, we had a company that came in, and I guess we were charging, I guess, a standard rate fee for every month, and they failed to pay rent for several months, so they got evicted. And I'm not sure their business plan was really conducive to what they were trying to sell. This business plan is whatever they sell at the end, then we'll get a profit sharing off that, so it's more in line with a success rate.
Counselor Gilbert.
Is all the equipment working okay out there at the mulch side?
Funny you mentioned that. We have 2 grinders that are down. We have one operational right now. And we have one front-end loader that just went down today with emergency brake, and that's getting emergency repairs done.
Okay.
We have a new grinder that, we've had issues with the fuel tank, so that's under warranty. And then we have one, our old tub grinder, it's a diesel. It's old. And we know we got some steel, so one of the contractors that brought steel in, we hit it with one of our hammers.
Oh,
And so we have to replace some teeth and a shaft on that.
okay, okay. So this fee, does that go towards maintenance of all of
It's
those?
everything, through the study we came up with, $5.26 is what we're using our equipment, our repairs, our maintenance, our employees,
Okay.
all it costs for a cubic yard to be processed.
Okay.
You can get 3 levels of grind over there.
Yeah.
Fine, medium, or chunky.
Well, I know that was.
Chunky.
When we were putting together the new trash system, especially the
green
yard
waste.
green waste, that was an issue when we started the recycling, that one of the grinders was down, so we had to revamp put the Greenways Task Force together to figure out what to do with it, so.
Okay, well, thank you so
Argo
much.
has one for their Chamber of Commerce.
No, thank you.
Thanks for making your way down to discuss greenways today.
Yes.
Never a dull moment at
Always
City of
enjoy
Tulsa on a
talking trash.
Wednesday.
Yes.
The leg thing up the back, I've never said that.
Okay, I'm gonna read number 8. Can we go to number 8? Yeah.
Great show.
No, it's not.
Discussion with representatives from Public Works Department regarding residential sidewalk projects. This discussion will include an overview of the city's processes related to identifying residential sidewalk projects, engaging residents, determining the location and mitigating impact to existing landscape and terrain. Brought to us by Councilor Dutton, I think in response to our public speaker last week, maybe. So,
That would be correct.
Councilor Dutton.
Welcome, Carl.
Well, thank you.
I think you're getting ready to learn us all.
Well, that's what I want to do. Paul Zachary, Public Works, City of Tulsa sidewalks. This are the kind of the questions that have been asked, the overview of ordinances, evaluation process, how we engage when we're talking about sidewalks, and build or backlog. As with everything else, we'd love to build all the sidewalks that we get asked to do, but all too often, as we'll talk about that here, often it goes to a backlog. So, next slide.
No, it's right here.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't.
Let me help you.
Here, you want to do that?
Yeah.
Counselor, can you advance my slides for me? Okay. Topics to be addressed. This is just going over. I want to identify residential sidewalk projects. That was something Counselor Dutton asked, particularly for new. Evaluation process for sidewalk project candidates, and that really comes in 2 different pathways to us. Citizen promoted or engagement, and then also city promoted, where we have funding packages, and then the engagement that's associated with that. Building sidewalks, we build when we are funded, and we have funding sources, and then we have the rest go to backlog. And just because they're on the backlog doesn't mean that they're not worthy projects. It's just, it is literally funding issues. All right, identifying residential sidewalk projects for new ones. This is the preamble to the ordinance, just so you guys know. This kind of gives us a statement of where we are and how we value and the reason for sidewalks. And I hate reading a bunch of whereas statements, but this is really our position, as the city of Tulsa recognizes that sidewalks are necessary and beneficial for the orderly development of all areas of the city of Tulsa, and even those areas that don't have sidewalks or were skipped over in previous. The city has and continues to develop, improve, require, and expand public sidewalk infrastructure within its boundaries. The construction of sidewalks is beneficial to the city and its residents by providing a safe traveling surface for pedestrians. And then sidewalks provide connectivity to schools, parks, shopping, public transportation, religious institutions, and other locations where pedestrian demand is high. So here are the definitions in our arterial street. As you might think, that's the street designated as an arterial, 21st, 31st. It can be a primary arterial, it can be a secondary arterial, or an urban arterial like what's around TU, etc. We then also have collector streets within our subdivisions. Most of our city streets, just regular streets, are like 50-foot right-of-way in residential areas, but in subdivisions, and you'll see all of a sudden the roadways might be 30, 32 feet wide or whatever. That's a collector, and those were intentionally placed there according to our metropolitan area major street and highway plan. Whether residential or commercial, it's just basically it is a collector street that connects people to arterial streets. Pedestrian circulation system, those are improvements, whether public or private. We have these same requirements on the private sector. They're included but not limited to sidewalks, parking lots, streets, paths, and trails, which provide connectivity and walkability between residential areas and businesses, schools, parks, and other pedestrian generators. So here's the rules. Required sidewalks. This is what everybody is facing today if they come here. Sidewalks are required to be installed on both sides of arterial streets, parkways, scenic driveways, commercial industrial streets, collector streets, and also on both sides of residential local streets if they're curb and gutter. The city of Tulsa didn't do that early on, And that, we're playing catch-up, and we're kind of paying that price for doing that as we're trying to go back and retrofit sidewalks in areas. It makes it more difficult. The director or the director's designee may also require the installation of sidewalks in other locations when determined that such sidewalks will contribute to logical and well-connected pedestrian circulation system. The reason we say that is sometimes we will find out that there are folks that need that accessibility, and it doesn't necessarily fall under these other areas, but they need a pathway to get to their grocery store. They need a pathway that needs to be done. So sometimes they fall off that, but we will prioritize them, and we're going to talk about those in just a second.
Okay, I was gonna clarify if that was like ADA accessibility based.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Just so you know, we will get calls, and there will be a vision impaired student that is walking this one block. It may be the only block of sidewalk in the entire neighborhood, but that's the sidewalk we will go build because we have a definite need for that. Land divisions, as defined by Tulsa Metropolitan Area subdivision and development regulations, anybody does anything, sidewalk is a requirement. Developments for which a building permit and a certificate of occupancy are required. So basically, anybody that's getting a building permit, if they're building anywhere, they're going to have to deal with a sidewalk requirement. These, again, are required. Critical sidewalk areas, and we actually have enumerated these in the ordinance. The following listed areas, the city of Tulsa, are pedestrian generators and designated as critical sidewalk areas. Properties abutting streets designated as arterials, parkways, all those again. Properties within 1/10 of a mile of a designated pedestrian generator. Anything within a school, public or private, as long as it's providing the compulsory education. I'm not going to say that there might be certain type of trade schools or colleges or something that may not have, but generally they do. They want sidewalks and accessibility. Parks, public transit stops, public libraries, religious assemblies, etc. We also got back to the 1/10 of a mile within existing sidewalks. We're going to continue those. New subdivisions or replat of existing subdivisions, they have a sidewalk requirement on them. So, evaluation process for sidewalk project candidates. And this is one that is going to come to us through the public. We have 9 criteria that we go through for City of Tulsa sidewalk improvement criteria, 9 separate of them. Safety, pedestrian generators, the street classification, school walking route, infrastructure concern, transit stops or it's on the route, sidewalk, trail build out. We get a lot of gaps and we're going to fill those in. Cost or funding opportunity, and also neighborhood concerns. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, but I'm going to hand out so we can talk about these without trying to see these detailed up on a screen. And those will come around. These are the guidelines that we follow, and when somebody calls us and asks about them, we're going to go through the steps 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, what we do to go out and evaluate. So if you turn to the first, it's page 2 of 3. The prioritization process. Potential sidewalk projects are scored and ranked using the 9 criteria that we just talked about. Those are all scored. The system is intended as an initial screening process for sidewalk project prioritization. You see the long descriptions under each one of these. Safety. Is it known that the area serves handicapped citizens? Points will be assigned. Field investigations will determine if there's a tripping hazard present and if severity of a barricade is in place, if there's something that's keeping the... Oh, absolutely.
No, you're fine.
You good?
Yeah, sorry to interrupt.
So we're also then looking at average daily traffic. You know, if it's over 1,500 vehicles per day, we're trying to look at those as well. Pedestrian generators, this kind of goes through that. I don't want to read through all this to them. It's basically adjacent to a hospital, the park, etc. Our biggest thing is you can look at it from an aerial view and you can look at it, it's like, well, that's not that serious. But then when you go out and actually walk it and see the tripping hazards and trying to navigate that. One of the things that our staff did, and we just had an ADA training not too long ago, but you either get blindfolded or you get put in a wheelchair and you have to try to navigate and go somewhere. and all of a sudden, the world becomes very, very real in how that works. So pedestrian generators, street classifications, again, we score those. We look if it's curbed or if it's bar ditch, and it talks about how we'll give points. School walking route, item 4 on the next page, relative location to proposed sidewalks. As you guys may or may not know, in our last Vision Tulsa program, we had over $14 million that we did a Safety First program. And we teamed up with Tulsa Public Schools, Jenks, and Union, and we defined issues that they had, and we went out and were able to make things a lot more communicable to their schools. We worked through a lot of their tier 1s. We're getting into tier 2, and I think we just picked up another $1.7 million we're going to be doing with Tulsa Public Schools. And these are the kind of evaluations we're going to go out and do and select those projects. Infrastructure concern. This is, I don't know how many of y'all have been walking down a sidewalk and a telephone pole sitting right in the middle of it. Signpost, power pole, traffic signals, guy wires. You wouldn't believe how many, which is even worse, the pole's off, which they might be able to locate, and then all of a sudden there's a single guy wire coming down. It becomes an issue. So there's a lot of large cracks, non-maintained infrastructure, et cetera. So we really try to look for tripping hazards. Transit stops, those have always been, that's been a lot of our ADA when folks have been trying to get access to those areas. We've really worked with MTTA, MetroLink to get those. Sidewalk or a trail build-out, if there's a gap and somebody was anticipating being able to walk so far, and then all of a sudden they get to a goat trail or something because they can't get somewhere because of that gap. Cost or funding opportunities, full credit for the criteria is given a potential sidewalk is against another planned project. If we have a neighborhood project or we have a street project and this one will connect us and close that will score higher and be put up higher on our list. Neighborhood concern, we get those when we go out and have our public meetings. Very often on our street program, that's when the neighborhoods will come out and ask, what can we do to get something here? Lived here so many years and it's never been here. So this is that list, and if you turn the sheet, one more, these are our scoring sheets. So our field folks will go out and they'll actually score them on each one of those items that I just kind of read about in the paragraph. And it's a way for us to get a very objective evaluation of that. If there are gaps or if they're not, are there barricades or do we need to put barricades in place, et cetera. So they go down all the way through that. And then down at the very bottom of it, we do have engineering site adjustment, maximum 10 points. That could be, it's not being maintained very well, there's high curbs, there's trip areas. The actual inspector can then add points if it's like it wasn't adequately, the issues weren't adequately covered above, but they can score them and get it put on there. So this is, we do have a City of Tulsa sidewalk database. It's a good number, good deal. We have the file numbers, request, inspection date, status, location, address, maintenance zone, council district, cost calculation, fund number, if it exists, which would be a very nice thing, permit number, and final inspection date. This is a good news that we have a great program. Here's just kind of a step of how we're actually going to walk through it. And Elliot Stiles is sitting over here. He runs this program for Public Works. But step one is we do receive a request for sidewalk improvements. It may be in reference to existing sidewalks that are damaged or out of compliance with ADA, gaps, all those kind of reasons. However we get it. Citizens, 311, if somebody calls in a complaint about that, we're going out and evaluating that section by the criteria that we just talked about. City officials, we get contacts, people like to contact the mayor and talk to the councilors about issues, and that's great. That is, we funnel our information in there. We appreciate 311, but we get a lot more information from councilors. It seems like you guys are out meeting with your folks. And then
Well said.
City
staff.
I mean, yeah, you guys could, 311 could use you all.
They do.
We are.
That's
That's
what
right.
we are. Ask
That's what I
Miss
thought.
Fothergill over here.
That's right. So step two, when we get those, city representative performs an on-site analysis to determine what is needed to resolve a sidewalk request. Just this morning at our policy committee at ODOT, they're generating heat maps based upon looking at aerial views and sidewalks and where should we focus next. And they're using the same criteria that we have, but they're not going boots on the ground, which is a major component that we have found over the years. It's like what looks like from the air as a nice sidewalk or nice, when you get down there, it's not as nice. So there's a lot, GIS applications that I believe are going to be good with this as well. So the third step, sidewalk criteria form is completed by the inspecting representative. This form goes over those factors. You can see our maximum scores are right around 154 points. Largest points, those are how we assign the various points, and that's on the ranking sheet as well, how much severe tripping hazard. So 10 points is the highest that we give for any particular topic. Step 4, an estimated cost is developed. Public Works staff for the prospective sidewalk. We get it established at the best rates that we can. Annually, we build an infrastructure contractor that restores right-of-way for broken utilities, et cetera. So we've got a price that we can actually give to them based upon and see what the costs are to do it. And then we go to our sidewalk priority list is updated to include the new prospective sidewalk project, and it goes in at its rank. We can get the last one that came in may have the highest score, and it may trump something that's been on there for 10 years or 15 years, but that's just the way we have to do it, and we stick to that process when we go through this. So that's the good news that we can do it, but here's the backlog, and you guys can pick out your own council deal, but we've broken this out by the council districts, 33 projects or sites on the arterial, 624 non-arterial in Council District 1, and you can just pick out your deal, and you can see the numbers that are associated with this, and I think you guys have this presentation, so you can have this slide to kind of have what this information is. So here's kind of some of our issue. In Improve Our Tulsa 1, Improve Our Tulsa 2, and Improve Our Tulsa 3, it goes over about 7-year periods. I wish I could say that the arterials would get 1.5 million a year for 7 years, but it's not. We get 1.5 million over 7 years. So divide that number by 7. Divide the non-arterial out of IOT 1 by 7. Less than $100,000 a year. Sidewalks can come in, depending on where you are, anywhere from $600,000 to $1 million along an arterial roadway. So you can see it's woefully funded.
I'm sorry, along, like a mile of sidewalk?
A miles are right on our arterial, I think in Council District, in yours on 51st Street.
That's exactly what I'm gonna bring up.
Right, that one came in, yeah, that was almost $1 million to go that way, that long. Because a lot of them, there's a reason they're not there, is because there's a drainage ditch, or there's other infrastructure that's needed. So we do get community development block grant money, approximately $300,000 a year. If somebody else, when you guys approve CDBG grants, if they're not spending their money, the city of Tulsa is going to lose it. So instead of defaulting, they'll give it to us and we'll go build a sidewalk.
If you're having CDBG, then we'll.
There you
do
go.
that.
So with that, so you can kind of see that's how our money is coming, and you see that 600, over, 21 years, 14 years, you're getting 2.3 million, $3.1 million in non-arterial, and this is the sad side. Sidewalk funding needs. Citywide right now, we have $22.5 million worth of requests. Arterial are sitting at $5.7 million. Non-arterial, $16.4 million. In the downtown area, there's a whole lot more to be done. Of course, we share that with Brian Kurtz and some others with Downtown Partners. But this does not even include all the ADA needs. These are the ones that have come to us by calls and complaints. I will say, we get an ADA issue or we get an ADA complaint that's coming in from our U.S. Senator's office that comes to us, or the Department of Justice lets us know about it, that gets an instant high priority. That is just the way that works. So you can see where we are, we kind of limp along, and this is the other item that we have, just so you guys may or may not be aware. We have what we call a Complete Streets Procedure Manual. On our capital projects, one of the things that we found years and years ago as we started going with our right-of-way to right-of-way, this manual kind of helps our designers in selecting appropriate, context-sensitive design elements for projects. We go into a neighborhood, we got an area, all of a sudden, here's a school on this side, there's an arterial this way, we have collectors. Probably when we work on that street, we need to be doing sidewalks along those collectors. And those then get built into our budgets, or it comes to light after we've started that we really need to be putting in sidewalks. Public input into the design process, we have 2 public meetings during the design in most cases, and then we'll have one during construction. And quite honestly, even during construction, we will get some requests that come up, and if we have the funds to do it, we will make changes or amends or whatever we can to incorporate it. Sidewalks, bicycle lanes, and other pedestrian and bicycle amenities will be incorporated into projects as they're appropriate. But the Complete Streets assists us in the evaluation of desired and acceptable levels of service for vehicular transit, bicycle, and pedestrian users, and that's on our arterials. But the idea is when we go in and work in a neighborhood, or we go work on an area, years ago in the 90s, street work would be done, then we would have a water line break right in the middle. And we'd be tearing up a brand-new piece of pavement. We've done a great job, Eric and his planning crew and ours. We've got water line assessments, sanitary sewer assessments. We know the age and how the performance is of the infrastructure underneath our roads. So when we go into neighborhoods, we don't want to leave it and be done and then come back because we've had a broken water line, et cetera. And another thing about that, when we do pick our projects based upon multiple triggers being needed, we can then, actually it is more efficient. A lot of the restoration costs for folks to put in underground infrastructure, our street program, which is already paying for that street, takes up to almost 40%, 30 to 40% cost savings on that utility to go in at the same time we are, because they're not having to restore the pavement. It's built into our street rehab program. So there is so much, if we do our Complete Streets or right-of-way to right-of-way approach, it's good for everybody, plus it's good for the citizen, because it minimizes the amount of time that we're sitting out in front of their house or on the commercial side out in front of somebody's business. So just as a summary on our capital street projects, as candidate street projects are evaluated based upon pavement management system and other triggers for a funding package, budgets are established based upon the need that we know of. Water, sewer, and stormwater infrastructure condition, or how they're identified needs in plans, we will incorporate those items. If we have a neighborhood that's got a PCI of 53 and we're going to put $2 million into it, why not pick one that's also got water, sewer, and other, and make it more economical and hit that neighborhood, and it's still, we end up with the same benefit as our street network on our pavement condition index. The need for sidewalks may be established initially, or it's developed after the project is approved. Our public meetings, people come up and they will say, really like to quit walking my dog in the street. As you get near this arterial, it's hazardous as people are pulling off there. Here we sit. So we try to incorporate those things into our projects as we go. Similar to ordinance and or sidewalk criteria evaluations, that's how we kind of justify, hey, this is a collector road, this makes sense, this, we would do sidewalks, so why not do it right now? Just because it wasn't done in the 40s, 50s, or 60s, that's something that we miss out on. And I will tell you, we see our suburb neighbors who have sidewalks in now, and every one of their neighborhoods is walkable. And we are so far behind that curve, and we're trying to pick that up, but we're having to do it on the back of our street program. As budgets can support, a Complete Streets approach is utilized, also known as right-of-way to right-of-way approach. And our street projects are responsible for many sidewalk improvements and ADA improvements on our arterials intersections and transit. So we do get some ADA funding, but it's on par with our sidewalk funding is. It's not adequate to cover all our needs. But this way, by doing it, lockstep with our street program, we believe it's the best way that we're gonna make a difference in our sidewalk inventory. So with that, that's just I think you guys have this presentation. If you wanna get information on the sidewalks in particular that are in your council districts, you can get with Elliot Stiles, email me, or email Elliot, and we can talk about it. But if you call and we get a complaint, this is what's getting filled out for those items when we go out and evaluate it. And we will tell the folks, if we go out and talk to them, if you don't get on our list, you're not even in the running. So when we do our capital programs, if we have a street program, these lists, we're gonna hit those as well, and we'll drop dots on it. If we can pick a street that we have known sidewalk complaints or issues or desires for it, that neighborhood's gonna get picked over this one that doesn't have a similar deal. So it's really the more triggers that we can trip on all our projects, I think it's better and it's the most efficient implementation of a capital program, so.
Thank you for that. I have 2 counselors in the queue, and we have 10 minutes for this addendum, so I just want to keep everyone on
Okay.
task. Counselor Bush.
So can you address the fee in lieu of?
Right.
Yes, the fee in lieu of program, and that's what this ordinance did. There are some places that people are building infill, and they are the only house out of 300 houses in that subdivision that would have a sidewalk in front of it. We have enough gaps and enough need that we can then, if they're not in a critical neighborhood, if they're not next to a school, they can pay a fee in lieu of, and we will take that money, and we have 19 districts, I think, across the city. Whatever area that's in, that money stays there. So I'm just gonna say, if there's a fee in lieu of in Council District 1 area or 3 area or whatever, it's gonna be done in a sidewalk within that area, and we will use that money, we will scrape that together, and we will make a meaningful sidewalk project, not just, I hate the term, but sidewalk to nowhere. Sometimes we have to build sidewalks to nowhere to start the process.
So you eventually connect.
Yes, they will. But it's a hard thing to do, but we're paying that price for not having those requirements early on.
How is the fee determined?
The fee is based upon the average cost. We did a low cost, a high cost, and we got with the Home Builders Association, and they came in with all their builders, and we settled on a price of what is a nominal fee. So we just charge one regardless. But most of the time, sidewalks are gonna be a little bit more than that, because in our gaps, it's generally because you have a topography issue and a retaining wall may be needed, a storm sewer pipe may be needed, but it's worked out very well. In fact, I think we've just finished 2 fee in lieu of projects here just recently that we wouldn't have been able to build, and we got them off our list now. But the fee in lieu of program has helped.
It's the biggest complaint from D9.
That they have to pay the fee?
They have to pay the fee. And/or they just go ahead and put it in, and when you turn your backs, they rip it out.
Well,
I think it's just unbelievable what's happening, so, and I know this because I've tried to walk the sidewalks in D9, and it's crazy. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen, and it's the biggest complaint that I get, Paul.
Yes,
I mean,
ma'am.
I'm not being critical of
No,
you, I'm
it
just saying
is.
it's,
We're living the results of what should have
Right.
been done back 40 years ago.
oh, I know.
Or you could put an overlay.
I think, I'll just name that one of the challenges within the, like, fee in lieu of thing is, right, that, like, depending on the district, how much development is even happening there, you're only collecting.
Infill.
Yeah, and how much infill's happening, you're only collecting, like, potentially in some areas that have less investment or development, such a small portion at such a slow rate that doesn't amount to anything. So at some point, I'm just naming to us that we should, like, potentially revisit that so that it could create bigger pools that could do more meaningful projects across the city.
And what we do with that is if that fee in lieu of can't alone, it's just like on the stormwater.
Yeah.
We will match it with another capital project. So we're always looking to leverage different colors, different sources of money, as Gary Ridley used to
say at ODOT, different colors of money is what makes these projects work.
Well,
And
good on
it
Gary.
is true. It is, I mean,
true.
it is, because you're right, Counselor, some areas are gonna be deficient just because, but they're scoring high enough when we do get our money from IOT 1 or 2 or 3, we will go pick that up and go just that much further.
Counselor
But
Dutton?
I think it's regardless, that's building something, building a sidewalk in the right place is better than building one that's island out there that would never be used
Right.
or
Of
taken
course.
out later. Yes, ma'am.
So, can you clarify for viewers watching what the city right-of-way measurement scopes are for creating sidewalks in neighborhoods? And the point for which city right-of-way is in proximity in the normally front yards?
In
Where the-
residential areas?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, our residential areas will generally run, we have in some of the midtown, we have some 40 but 50 is generally, but then on collector streets, we have 60 foot of right of way. So if you have a, 26-foot wide street or whatever, then that curb and then that area back behind that. So we have a lot of front yards that are public right of way, and I think we're gonna talk with somebody. A lot of the areas where people have fenced their front yards, they're actually like 4 feet to 3 feet to 5 feet. We have one that's 6 feet inside our right of way. And we had a bad deal go on, actually in your council district, to where we had a contractor that got overly aggressive and
So
they made
surprised.
some stupid assumptions, so
Yeah.
we're having to fix that. But anytime that we go in and have to retrofit a sidewalk, it's, retrofitting things are difficult. People have their improvements, and you all know the license agreement things, what people they wanna do their full yard, and we fully appreciate that. So we have to be a little more sensitive in those areas, and Counselor Dutton, to your, that was a terrible thing. We ended up cutting into some trees, and we've had an arborist out there now, and we're basically, any damage that we may be created, we're gonna say, hey, if your tree doesn't recover in 3 to 5 years, because that's what we found, is if a tree could be damaged, it might be 2 years, 3 years before it shows up. So, we're gonna take care of those things. But yes, 50 and 60 feet.
Right.
So 30 feet either side,
Right.
and that's
That's
where.
from the center?
From the center of
From
the
the
road.
center, okay, yeah. 'cause
Predominantly. We have
Right.
to look, some of them are
Right.
built off side one way or the other for topography reasons, but that's generally the issue. And that one, we've got some
Right,
to
well,
show
that's
you.
just what I wanted to clarify, was there is always that right-of-way when it comes to sidewalks, city right-of-way, and that measurement from the center to the front yard of people's residences, and they don't always consider that when they're building out in their front
All right.
yards.
And a lot of the ones that we get are people that are not the people that were there from the
Right.
beginning. They're the fourth,
Right.
fifth, sixth property owner.
That's true.
They had no idea that that front yard fence was 4 feet into our
Well,
right of way.
ideally, when there's a sidewalk install going in, like the counselor would convene the neighbors and have a conversation. So
Yeah.
I don't know, I mean, you just came in, but I don't know how that situation happened.
It happened.
Oh, yeah. It
During
happened
David
just like what you would never
Patrick's-
think would
Yeah.
happen. But it
They
did.
followed the protocol, and there's documentation for
So.
the protocol.
Well,
Anyhow.
thank you. We have 2 minutes for this addendum.
It's
I
good.
guess we're gonna go long, so thanks, Paul.
Yes, ma'am.
Item number
Support.
10
This one's
is
I have a lot of
a
questions.
discussion with the Director of
It's a
Water
good
and
one.
Sewer and his designee regarding
one.
Senate Bill 3 PFAS in biosolids and the potential budget impacts. This is brought to us by Chairman Lincoln. You wanna just tee this up why this is on our agenda as an agenda?
I'm just gonna let Eric tee it up. He's gonna be more succinct than I will be.
I know, but it like came really late to us, so can you just tell us why?
Oh, because we had a call just earlier this week, and it just has, there's some legislation relating to this topic.
Did it already pass?
I have no idea what the present
State-
status is. but-
state legislation?
State legislation, but Eric can tell us.
Okay, I just,
Yep.
it was pretty late, so I was like, what's going on?
Oh, yeah, it was new information to me, and
Right.
I was like, we gotta hear about this right now in order to know what the negative impacts could be if it passes.
So it did pass out of the Senate today at 42 for vote, but I'd like to bring this to your attention because it's going to go to the House Ag
Okay.
Committee next.
Yep.
Okay.
So I've been here before, maybe most of you know about PFAS. Okay, so I won't spend, okay.
Forever chemicals and plastics.
Okay.
It's what we're drinking in our water bottles.
Right.
Anything more?
There you go.
All right.
To the end out.
There's a show and tell today.
Yeah, so what are biosolids? Oh, I'm sorry, Eric Lee, Water and Sewer.
Cindy Cantero, Water and Sewer.
Matt Vaughn, Water and Sewer.
So biosolids, when we treat wastewater, there's two byproducts from that. One's liquid, one's semi-solid, and the semi-solid is the biosolids. And so we typically, for us, we landfill, or we land apply those. There are options of incineration and landfilling, so based on what community you're in. Nationally, the graph to the left shows that 60% of biosolids are land applied. I think actually in the state of Oklahoma, there's 0 that go to incineration or near 0 that go to incineration. If you look on the website, we have a fact sheet on biosolids program that Cindy put together a few years ago, and that turned out really well. It tells about the beneficial use of them, and we follow federal regulations, Part 503. And there's two kind of biosolids. There's either Class B or Class A. We produce Class B. It's 99% reduction in pathogens. If you go to Class A, you can get to the point where you're almost, there's 0 or near 0 pathogens. And in fact, in that also, if you ever see like a Lowe's or Home Depot, they'll have sometimes soil amendment or whatever. It has to meet that Class A for it to be packaged and commercially available. So we have 4 treatment plants. It's interesting, and I'll show the bottom 2 first. Our Lower Bird Creek treatment plant, it actually pumps sludge through a line to our north side plant where it's treated. And that product is about a 1.5% solids, and so not very much. We put it in lagoons, then decant at 7%. It's still kind of liquidy, and I don't think that that would be taken at a landfill. In fact, we're pretty confident they'd have to bulk it or do some additional treatment to that to actually be able to put it in a landfill. Otherwise, it slopes the landfill away and causes problems with that. The other treatment plant, 2 treatment plants we have are Hakey Creek, which we co-own and operate with Broken Arrow. And that product, we actually truck that sludge from there to our south side plant. We've been working on a project to put composting at that plant. So that's going to be kind of under consideration, and I'll talk about this bill in just a second. And then at our south side plant, we dewater, and that's a 15% solids. And we put in drying beds, we can take that to a landfill with no issue. So just kind of showing an overall map, the counties around us, and then Tulsa County as well. You can see some kind of darker markings. Those are some of the places that we take and land apply. Our biosolids, we get great results. All the landowners really like it. In fact, there's a waiting list. People see what is produced in the farm next to them, and they're like, hey, how did you just do that? And so it's like, well, we've got this nutrient-rich product that we get from the city of Tulsa, so that's great. So, yeah.
It's a lovely way of putting it, Eric.
I know, right?
For your own yard, by the time he's done.
Nutrient rich, yum yum.
Wait, as a clarified question, when we say biosolid, that's organic matter, right?
Yeah.
But PFAS, the chemicals are not.
So what happens is, like anything else, whatever people flush to us is what we get. And so whether it's pharmaceuticals, whether it's microplastics, and there's some of that stuff, they just don't break down as easily. So yes,
Think about it before.
PFAS can be in biosolids.
Flush.
Yeah. And it's not just us. I mean, it's the same thing happens if you have a septic tank.
Sure.
And you're taking showers and washing off makeup or sunscreen, or you're washing off your pots and pans that have Teflon coating. It's the same thing.
Okay.
So Senate Bill 3 was proposed by Senator Green down near Shawnee, and his proposal was by September 1st, 2025, we need to have a plan for a cessation plan for land application, so no more land application. We can put together a plan, no problem with that timeline. We can come up with a plan. But then also 25% reduction in biosolids that would be land applied, and so we'll talk about that here in just a second, and then a 50% reduction September 26, total ban July 27. And in the definition of his Senate bill, biosolids material, to the counselor's point, means sewage sludge containing any PFAS. So if this is, what would be the impact if it passes? We would start sending, if you look in the operations column, 25% reduction, we would send 56% of our south side, which goes as thicker product, to a landfill, about 1.5 million more per year. Operations cost the next year, a 50% reduction as we start moving south side and 10% of our north side product. So the disposal cost increases to 3.3. And then the last one would be, once we get to a full ban, all of that going to a landfill is another $10 million per year that our citizens have to pay through rates. What's the capital investment? We would need to have dewatering because it's more of a liquid product at north side, so there's a capital cost associated with that. And then also, Hakey's going to be up in the air. We've talked to DEQ. There's some concern about whether composting is going to have to go to landfill or whether we can use compost in a land application process. So I don't know if they have an answer yet. So just assuming that both locations, we have to put in dewatering, take it to landfill, you're talking $100 million more in capital costs of both of those facilities. Problem is going to be construction. You just can't construct it between now and the full ban. So I think DEQ said that we would be, like most utilities, be under a consent order until we could fully have those facilities constructed. And then you can see future, obviously we don't want to pay for any more material than we have to, so we may even further add to the capital by thermal drying, more dewatering to kind of reduce that overall weight of biosolids. So consideration of legislation, and to the counselor's point again, we're a passive receiver. We receive all this stuff, whether it's microplastics, pharmaceuticals, PFAS. The question is always, what do we do with that? If you look at biosolids, that's been an acceptable practice for decades. We're highly regulated. We have to get permits through DEQ for all of our sites. We do testing for nutrients, for heavy metals, but we haven't been doing testing for PFAS because that hasn't been on the list. So I think from our point of view, we'd really like to see the science behind all of this. And I'll get to that here in just a second. Just a couple other stats real quickly. There is a concern from the landfill community that there's not going to be enough space and that we'll be taking up space that they need for trash. So that's going to be another concern. We're all kind of mixed together in this. And then the timeline is going to be kind of impractical. So just across the nation, you're like, well, this is Oklahoma. What's happening throughout the rest of the nation? Maine and Connecticut, they've banned biosolids, and I think that they haven't really looked at the science yet. California is only focused on drinking water. But then Michigan, Wisconsin, New York is interesting because they've actually set kind of these thresholds, these limits. And so if you look to the right side of that page, if it meets below 20 micrograms per kilogram or 1 part per billion, then no land application restrictions. So let's kind of set thresholds. That kind of middle range going up to 1 part per million or more, or 100 parts per billion, is no disposal, or disposal through the landfill, so take it to landfill. And then in between, it's more additional testing to see how it's doing. Maybe less is applied. But here's the interesting note. USGS, if you look at the bottom right side, recent study shows no agronomic uptake into corn. So really, we want to start looking at the science. What is the uptake into fruits, vegetables, fruit trees, vegetables, whether it's a vine, a stalk, whether it's a rooted vegetable, maybe it's different for all of those. So in summary, real quick, the impact to us is we've currently got a project for composting at Hakey Creek. It includes a USDA grant. So we're concerned about losing that grant to create compost and then have to do a different methodology to handle biosolids. $100 million in capital costs, $10 million in operating costs per year. And then it could also impact septic tank owners. We have quite a few people in the city of Tulsa that still have septic tanks, and the clean-out costs for them will go up as well. So recommendations from us would be more testing, and then more kind of using the scientific approach to kind of set thresholds and limits. As we mentioned at the beginning, it passed out of the Senate today 40-4. If you agree with kind of our approach to this, which is let's use a scientific-based approach and kind of study this a little bit more, I'd appreciate if you can talk to your legislators, because the impact is rates are going to go up for the people in your districts. So we don't want that. We've seen a beneficial use of PFAS, or not PFAS, biosolids. Let's test it to see what the impact is. Again, farmers, ranchers that we apply this or that we provide this to, they really like it. So let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Well, and I noticed that, just for your information, you all, Dave Rader and Christy Gillespie, so our two area senators voted no.
Yeah.
So,
And
They
we've
were two
talked-
of the four,
we've-
Counselor?
Two.
They were two of the four.
yeah, so it wasn't party lines, I mean, it was our local
Right.
folks.
Were
They
the
became
other-
very interested in the legislation, that they did some
Were
homework.
the other two also, like, were they okay? I'm curious if it's like an okay, if this is an urban, rural, like, city cost thing.
Who were
or
the
not.
four that voted no? Can
Yeah.
you let us know?
Yes.
Actually, I don't know.
Oh.
I
Here,
can't,
shoot.
I'm
She'll
looking
check,
it up. Gillespie, Stewart, Rader, and Zachariah?
Wait, was that Ron Stewart? Stewart's another Tulsa?
No, he's not a senator.
It's not-
Oh, sorry, never mind. I forgot we were talking about senators on the House. Yeah,
Senator,
ignore
yeah.
me.
So this is a statewide issue.
Right,
Sure, of
course.
I was at DEQ last week, met with utility managers.
Our senators.
And everyone said this is gonna impact whether it's Guyman, Woodward,
Sure.
Lawton, across the state. McAllister was, everyone was there to try to talk about this issue. And so we're asking every utility, every city to get with their legislators and say, wait, can we just pause before we just do an outright ban? Can we pause and really think about and talk about how this is gonna impact everybody?
Has Mr. Stone put together some sort of
He-
talking points that we can amplify?
We can get that to you.
That'd be great.
Mr. Stone and I met with Senator Green very early on when this first started going on, and so he's been involved, and so we can work on getting
Okay,
those
I have
talking
Counselor Ballas, Counselor Bush, then Counselor Lakin.
Well, just real quick, let me answer
Yeah, oh,
your
yeah.
question. The other, there's three urban
Okay.
senators. The
One.
Zachariah Kendall is Cleveland, Garvin, Grady, McLean, Stevens, so
Interesting.
rural. So three urban, one
One
rural.
rural. Okay,
Sorry.
that's always a good breakdown, just for us to know
Yeah.
from an advocacy perspective. So my question though, kind of taking a step back, because I want to acknowledge, like, right, when at this table, we're obviously considering these budgetary impacts, but we also know that there are significant, like, and growing studies showing significant health impacts from these chemicals. So I think it would be helpful, like, or I would feel better being able to really advocate in alignment with everyone if I understood a little bit more of, like, some of, like, the implications or what you all, like, if there's something we're already, what are we already doing? What are we looking at doing? Is there stuff we would do as a city anyway, or that you all could use support in that's less financially costly, knowing that health issues are also costly? Because I'm just thinking through, it's one of those, right, the more studies that come out, we know that these have reproductive and fertility impacts, cardiovascular impacts, cancer impact, right? Like, these chemicals are really harmful. I know the science on it, like, there's so much ongoing research, and per your point, like, you don't want to overreact to a degree that what we end up doing is unsustainable for our city. But what are we currently looking at for, especially you all have data about what's, like, in our water now, or what seeps into
So our drinking water is really good.
Okay.
And so we don't have, based on the studies we have non-detectable PFAS. I think the only detectable amount we had was in some residuals that we had accumulate over a long period of time. But here's what I'll say to what you just mentioned, is you're drinking out of plastic water.
Well, oh, I know, I want to acknowledge I have health anxieties, but I'm doing this,
No, but
I
this
know.
this is good to know.
Yeah.
You're eating goldfish out of a bag that probably has line PFAS in there. You're probably eating.
You're about to get me charged with child neglect since I'm pregnant.
Right, it's one of those things,
Gosh.
the question is,
Yeah.
does the impact from what you're doing in your daily life
Have a
have
higher
more or less impact than what this is being applied to
Right.
and that uptake into the agricultural product? So, I don't know that the studies are there yet.
They're not there, and that's the hard thing, is I want to acknowledge the science isn't there. Yeah, I know, I just saw something about how chewing gum gives you like 10, like, micro whatever of PFAS every time.
And so my recommendation would be is we all learn more about it, we read about
Right.
it. Let's study it more before we just totally ban it, because that ban could be so costly to all of our ratepayers.
Right.
And not really provide the result maybe that we're needing,
Mhm.
if the result is really there's other things that we can do in our life to have less exposure.
Right, and then I had looked up, I know you're recommending this Michigan model, which at first when I saw that, and I was like, oh God, these, like, dangerous chemicals that we're still really learning about and coming to grips with globally, right, scientifically. And then I saw Michigan, and I was like, yes, they're very known for water quality in Michigan. So it took me a second there, because I was thinking of Detroit. But when I was looking at what they've deployed, I see what you're saying, whereas this measured approach. My only question was that I saw that it's gotten a little held up in maybe litigation. We can look into that another time.
Yeah, we can look
but-
into that. I know the
Yeah.
EPA has endorsed Michigan's model
Okay.
as a model to follow for other states,
With-
looking at this.
How recently has the EPA endorsed?
I think this may have been before the current federal
Okay.
administration.
Because that kind of goes into my last big curiosity, just thinking about balancing those costs and then public health needs, granted per your point, and we can all agree, like, the science on this is really evolving right now. I'm curious, for like, if the federal government, which they've already like, kind of pulled back on certain regulatory demands about, like, I think, limitations on what's allowed to be in water and things like that, if the federal government or EPA kind of pulls back further related to certain water quality criteria, will that yield a shift, including related to this, for us as a city, or are you kind of like, no, we're gonna continue to be testing and?
While I am the director of the Water and Sewer Department, we will continue to promote public health and do all the testing that's needed to make sure that we're doing the right thing for you, for the citizens. So we're gonna keep studying it because we recognize the impact that we're working with these landowners. We're providing water to citizens. We wanna do everything that's right, but we also wanna make sure that we're making good financial and public health decisions, because if we take that money out of people's hands that could use it towards public health in another way, then we're not doing a service for them either.
Right, that makes sense. Thank you so much. And I'm glad you mentioned the septic tank factor cost as well, because I know there have been some studies, including one out of Michigan, that were showing that those actually had like higher rates of these chemicals because of like things are being just stored and held.
Right.
So, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Counselor Bush.
If you'll get us the fact sheet, I'll be glad to get it to you, counselors, and also to the community at large, to send to the members of the Ag Committee in the House, after this week. Obviously, they start the process all over again. So the House now is that two-committee process. So we'll have to do it twice before it goes to the floor.
Right, I think they took the title off, you'll have to explain this, they took the title of the bill, so it goes to the House committee, the House to vote, then it comes back to the Senate.
Yes, if it's restored. So if there's a fiscal impact, they always strike title.
Okay.
I just looked it up. Their fiscal impact is pretty minimal, because it doesn't reflect the fiscal impact to our communities.
Right.
So I hope that information sheet kind of addresses that, because the bill summary and their fiscal impact does not correlate to what it's going to cost our cities.
Okay.
And if not, we'll figure that out, but
Yeah.
just to give you,
Okay.
when they said $19,000 fiscal impact, I'm like, no,
Right.
that's not what this is.
Yeah, we need to add our fiscal
Our
impact
fiscal
on our
impact,
municipality
yeah.
and our citizens.
And our citizens,
Our
'cause that's a huge thing.
co-constituents that we can.
But if you'll get that, I'll be glad to dog that and send out even the contact information to the House members when it's appropriate.
We appreciate that.
Counselor Lakin.
What was the impetus of this whole bill?
Yeah, why did he run it?
Well, there's only what I've heard. This is what I've heard. What I don't totally know is, so where Oklahoma City land applies their biosolids is in the Jones-Wellston area. And I first heard that this was an odor issue. But I think as people kind of looked at biosolids, it was more than just the odor issue. It was also the concern of what could be in there. PFAS is, I think, it's garnering the most attention kind of across the nation. So I think that probably all of a sudden was like, well, it's not just odor, it's also PFAS. And so that's what I heard was a concern.
Okay.
So nothing
And we
from-
can control some of those things, like odor can be controlled slightly? Okay.
Yeah.
A lot less expensively than $10 million a year hit to the city of Tulsa on an annual basis?
Right.
Okay. Yep, all right. This, now you understand why.
Yeah, and we may have some
It was important
time.
for us all to know about this.
Once, if there's consensus between the administration and the council, we could always run a resolution too.
So the city of Broken Arrow just ran one.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that'd be great. If you want me to come back with language or
That'd be
provide
great.
the
If you
language.
want to send us theirs,
Send it to
too.
Sarah, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
It sounds like we have a little time because of the two committee
Mhm.
structure, but
Yeah.
we don't want to wait around either.
Yeah, I'm texting back and forth with my senatorial representative. I think that.
Who voted for it?
Yep.
And so,
And who would your representative be?
No, I would support a resolution to.
Sounds like we even have draft language, so it could go pretty fast, but.
Yeah, and I think as maybe rural areas get more involved in this too and start understanding the, the financial implications for their own city, but also their residents. You know, if I have septic tank problems in South Tulsa, then I think rural areas probably have as many, if not more. And it becomes an issue for those individuals. They don't have any place to go
Could we
for
also?
their biosolids.
Right, and if their costs are currently
Yeah.
$200 to $300 for a clean out or whatever it happens to be for a tank, and that has to go up fourfold, that's a big hit.
Huge hit.
Yeah.
Could we also find out about an OML position on this?
They sent out a letter today to all of their members,
Okay.
asking them to vote against it.
Okay, so we can look in our inboxes for that. So that gives us some good talking points.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing this to our
Yeah,
attention.
thank
Sorry
you.
for the
Thanks for
delay
sticking
on
around
the
too.
meeting.
Okay.
I'm gonna adjourn this meeting and we'll reset, in 10 minutes? Is
Yeah.
that enough?